Hi, everybody. So I wanted to give you a little bit of instruction about doing your learning reviews that are due on the 15th. This is the learning review that is about making appropriate graphs for your variables. And so you can see right now I'm in Blackboard and I'm in the area where the learning reviews are. I want you to notice that this learning review is a little bit different because I have two separate pieces to it. I have a part called generating appropriate graphs. And in this part, all I'm asking you to do is after you've made your graph in RStudio, I want you to tell me what the graph is like. So I'm going to have you upload your graph separately. In this area right here, I want you to interpret the graph in a sentence or two. What does the graph show you? And I'm asking you to do that for your graph for your nominal variable, your graph for your ordinal variable, and your graph for your interval ratio variable. Okay, so the other part of the learning review that I'm asking you to do is once you make your graphs in RStudio, upload them here. So I have posted instructions about how to copy a graph from RStudio and post it into a Word document or a PowerPoint. So I'm asking you to take your three graphs that you make, your nominal, ordinal, and interval ratio graphs, paste them into a Word document, and then upload that document here, so that when I'm looking at the learning reviews, I'm getting to see both your graphs, which you've uploaded here as a Word document, and what you said about them, which you're filling in this learning review section right here. It's my fault that I wasn't able to figure out how to make an assignment where everything could be in one spot, but please do keep in mind you have two separate parts here for the learning review that's due on Friday the 15th. So how do we do this learning review? Let's go over to RStudio. I have the notebook open and I have our spot here is where we began the lab that we did on March 9th with the graphs. So as always, I know some of you are probably getting tired of hearing this. We're going down into the console and making sure that we are out of swirl before we do anything in the notebook. And so I have just the prompt. So I think I'm out of swirl, but to be 100% sure, I'm going to type the word by with parentheses after it. Okay. Don't worry about the warnings. I get warnings too, and so far nothing horrible has happened. So by got me out of swirl. Depending on where you are in swirl, by might work for you, or you might have to type 0 a few times to get out of the lesson you were doing and then to get to an upper level menu that will get you out of swirl. But once you're out of swirl, we can minimize the console, get into our notebook. And again, I've scrolled all the way down to where we did our lab on Saturday the 9th. And so I'm going to run the first chunk. And now we've loaded the data and we have our graph packages and everything. So in the lab, we did a bar graph for a nominal variable and one for an ordinal variable and one for an interval ratio variable. You can either edit what's in here or you can paste so that you have the original stuff that we did in lab plus the stuff that you're doing for your learning review. So let's look. This is the bare bones bar graph. We don't want bare bones. We want a little more detailed graph. So this is making a graph or bar chart for the variable race. Race is a nominal variable. Let's do a graph for our nominal variable. And if you remember, I said that for this learning review, you should work with the same three variables that you used for the generating measures of central tendency learning review. So your last learning review about getting the means and medians and modes, you had one nominal, one ordinal, and one interval ratio variable. Use those same 3 variables for this learning review. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just copy this chunk completely and then get onto a blank line. So I'll just hit enter here. Whoops, hit enter. So now I have some blank space. I'm going to right click and paste. So now I have a duplicate chunk of the one that is for race, and I can play with this chunk to make my nominal variables bar chart. So let's say that my nominal variable is religion, okay? What you're going to do is look for everywhere that race is here and change it for your variable. So I gave the example of religion. In the GSS dataset, religion is called relig. That's the name of the variable. You have to use that exact name that the GSS has given the variable for the top thing right next to this is NA, and for the next spot where it's the AES X equals, it's the exact variable name. Okay. Where you have a little bit more flexibility is in the title and in the labels. So you don't have to type relig here. And I actually would prefer if you wrote out the word religion or gave a more descriptive title. Because remember, we're trying to make a graph that anybody, not just someone in this class, could look at and understand what it's about. So here, rather than typing the word relig, I'm going to type religious belief, okay? And I've also split the title. There's a video about that here as well. By putting this slash and n, the title is going to go on to 2 lines. And then the last spot where we have race, we can put religion as well. We don't have to use the specific GSS way that the variable is listed. We can write freely here. So I'm going to type religious belief. So this is the chunk. Let's run it and see what we get. Okay, so we have it split onto 2 lines. We have a descriptive title, we have the percentages, and then we have the different religions, and we have the description here, religious belief. But look at down here. This is really hard to read. The different religions are on top of each other. You can't really make sense of them. One of the tricks that you can do if you have something like this is to flip the graph on its side so that you can see each religion without it running into the others. So you don't have to do this if you make a graph and everything across the bottom is clear. But if you run into a situation like this one, what you want to do is type, I want to make sure that I have the right instructions before I tell you what to do. Okay, so what you're going to do is at the very end of the chunk you have here, you're going to do a plus sign, and then you're going to type coord flip and parentheses. So this little command is telling RStudio to flip the graph so that what was vertical is horizontal and vice versa. So all I've done now is just added that additional thing to the graph command, And let's rerun and see what happens. Yes, now we can make sense of it. We have our title, we have the different religions, and we have the percentages. So now we can clearly see that somewhere around, I don't know, 25% of people say that they're Catholic, about 58% of people say that they're Protestant, and you can see each of the other names of the religions clearly. So that is what you would do for a nominal variable. It's very similar to what you would do for an ordinal variable, but I'll show you an example of that as well. So let's go down to our ordinal variable. For the ordinal variable, in our lab example, we had the variable class. Let's copy that whole chunk where we did the ordinal variable and move on to do a paste. And then we're going to change the word class to the name of your ordinal variable right here and right here. And then you're going to make your descriptive title and change the word class to something that describes your variable a little bit more. So let's say the variable's happy. Here, I'm going to type level of happiness instead of just the word happy. And then down here, I'm also going to do level of happiness. What do we get? Okay, the title runs on to the next line. So if we want to fix that, we go back in here and we do the backward slash and an N to split the title, rerun it. Okay, now we have it. And of course, you can go in and play with the colors. So the fill is what shows up inside the bars, and the color is the outline of the bars. So that is for bar charts for nominal and ordinal. I'm going to make another separate video for the histograms.